Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis, a podcast dedicated to the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. Hi, everybody. It's Monday, and it's about 3:45 on the East Coast. What's up, Fruit Loop?
Nothing much.
We had a week last week.
We did have a week.
Yeah, so we went to go visit my parents down at the beach, and I brought my kitten, which it went okay, I think, but my dad was a little irritated with the kitty. So I had a big medical incident.
Yeah, we weren't there when it happened though.
No, Fruit Loop and my kids were, I think you guys were like out somewhere.
Yeah, we were on the golf cart.
On the golf cart riding around. That's kind of what you do at my parents' house in their little area that they have their house. You just go out and cruise the golf cart at night. So my dad, I noticed he was starting to get really sort of irritated with the kitten. And they're really funny about their house. Like, it's always super clean. And he was worried the cat was going to like pick the furniture and all that. So I was a little on edge. So the cat's on this vase, and it's a tall vase that you put in the floor. And my mom has this decorative grass coming out of it. And it's like to my belly button, right?
Yeah.
Tall stuff.
Yeah.
So the cat's kind of climbing on the vase, and my dad gives it like the side eye and says, can you get the cat? So I go to bend down to pick up the kitty. And one of those blades goes straight through my eyeball.
Yeah.
Straight through. And I feel it going in. And I guess I should have maybe warned people, like, if you're squeamish, don't listen.
Don't listen.
Sorry, it's a little late. But so as a kid, I always had this irrational fear that one day I was going to like skewer my eyeball on something.
And it came true.
And it was as terrible as I ever imagined it.
When we came in, you were like, look what I just did.
Yeah.
And you had like this brown, because your eyes are brown, and I don't know if that's what it was, but it was like this trail of brown stuff in your eye.
Oh, it's still there.
Yeah.
Okay. So at first, it hurt when it happened. And then afterwards, it was a little bit of a sharp pain, but I could see okay. And I just thought, okay, well, maybe I'll call the eye doctor in the morning. And so I call and talk to a doctor, and he's like, oh, no, that's your eyesight. If something penetrated your eyeball, you should probably go get checked. So, Fruit Loop, you took me to a local emergency room.
Yeah. So we took you to the emergency room and left you because we couldn't go in.
Right. You're my daughter,
my
oldest.
Your oldest. And so we get back, and we're kind of hanging out, trying to figure out what to do. And we're like, we're just going to go back down there because they had done all the CT scan and all. So we're getting ready to leave, and you text, and you're like, no, you call, and you go, they're taking me to MUSC.
Which is in Charleston. It's like 95 miles away, Fruit Loop.
It was like an hour and 40 minutes by ambulance.
Right. So they gave me the sort of, what happened was they put this dye or this stain in my eyeball to see if I had a leak of my eye fluid. Well, I did. So she said, well, a family member could drive you, but the specialist down there wanted it to be wanted me delivered in an ambulance and as quickly as possible, because if you guys had brought me, I would have to check in, wait to be seen, to where ambulance, they roll you right in, and the doctor's there waiting. So I load up in an ambulance and now at this point I'd had morphine.
And I'm going to tell you guys, I've been around her when she's had it before with her, what was it you had?
Like 50 knee surgeries.
Yeah, and stuff. And she doesn't do well.
No, I get a little bit wild. Not like mean, but I get brave, and I get mouthy too. But I lose inhibition. So that comes in later.
So we literally, I looked at your mom when you text that, and I said, we have about 10 minutes to really get information out of her, because after that, it's going to be really, really, really fuzzy.
Yeah, but the bad thing is, I had it, at this point, it's like after midnight, I think. It happened at like 9:30. So by the time I took like an hour to get to the ER, because I was like cleaning the house up a little bit before I left. I didn't want to leave my parents' house dirty. And all the while I got eyeball fluid like going down my face.
Yeah.
So they put me in the back of this ambulance for 90 something minutes. Yo, it's like an hour and a half. I've had 2 doses of morphine. I'm green. I'm just ready to blow chunks in the back of this ambulance, and I get there. So ultimately, I have what they call a ruptured globe. So that means that I ruptured my eyeball. And they were going to do surgery that night, but the main chief of staff, he had all of his people out of bed in the middle of the night because they don't see this very often. A ruptured globe is kind of a, yeah, I guess it's a hard thing to achieve, and I achieved it with ease. I've always said I'm going to die in such a stupid way. I mean, I always get hurt in the most random ways.
Shish kebab eye.
Yeah. So ultimately, at about 4:45 that morning, they say, well, if you want to go back to your home tonight or this morning, you can go ahead and call if it's going to take them a while. So Fruit Loop, the trusty best friend, gets texted at 4:15, 4:30. I don't know.
4:15.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, Mom, I'm ready. And Fruit Loop got in the car and drove an hour and a half with no sleep to pick me up.
Yeah. And you called me 4 times on the way and asked me the same 4 questions.
See, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I know. Are you driving my dad's truck? What time will you get here?
Well, what's bad is they dosed me up right before they put me outside.
Yeah, so then this COVID stuff has our medical facilities just going crazy. So, yeah, they give you pain medicine and then just turn you loose.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking to her and I'm like, do not move.
Yeah.
Because we have an app where we can, her mom can watch us traveling or whatever. So we're all on there. So I was like, do not move.
I was standing on the street corner.
So she was. She was like, I pull up. She's standing across the street from the hospital. And where we are is some of it's not good sections of town. So
yeah.
Yeah. So we got it and got back home.
Oh man, that ride home was terrible because I was sick to my stomach and I kept rolling the window down and blasting the air. And Fruit Loop's like, "You're good. I'm fine. You just do you."
Yeah.
So, anyways, Fruit Loop was just amazing through it all. It was the craziest thing ever. I'm doing okay. I can see. I got my lens a little bit, but not enough to where I have to go see a surgeon this week. But for right now, they don't think I'll have any permanent eye damage. Just a lot of emotional issues when I think about what happened.
Yeah, and we did crack some jokes with your little black eye patch thing.
Oh, yeah, man. I was a pirate for Halloween.
There you go.
Perfect.
Yep.
So we have, as you know, we've been taking a little bit of time with our podcast in between just because there's up until a week ago or so, there hasn't been any news. We are going to be getting back to regular stuff really soon. Maybe 1 to 2 a week. I think we'll have a lot of news coming out with these upcoming hearings. So what do we have coming up, Fruit Loop?
I think the November 24th hearing to move trial out of Fremont County.
Yep.
So change of venues coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Then the pre-trial.
This is for Chad.
Yep, is December 8th.
Yep.
And that trial is supposed to start January 11th and run through the 29th. And then what's the other one?
Lori's pre-trial is going to be February 25th, and the trial is March 22nd to April 2nd. Although, since they're joined, I assume one of these, unless the separation is granted, one of these trial dates will drop off.
Yeah.
And they'll make it one. So the pre-trial, what can we expect? Still a little ways away, but what's going to happen?
Yeah, so both sides can bring up discovery issues. See where everyone stands, make other motions, plea deal if offered.
I don't think there'll be a plea deal.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, and I guess it's probably safe to say some of these other hearings could be canceled because we're joined now. One interesting thing is a local who lives there says that she hasn't seen Mark Means' car at the jail for a good while unless he's driving a new car.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. And it just hit me, back in August, the Gilbert Police Department said that they would be eventually filing charges for Lori and for Charles.
Yeah.
And so we were told 4 to 6 months back in August. So we're starting to get into the time frame of where charges for his murder could drop.
Yeah, the last I saw it was saying possibly December of this year. So it's coming up.
Yeah, it won't be long. And of course, we're still waiting on the kids. we're still waiting on Tammy Daybell. And speaking of Tammy Daybell, her family, on the day of her 1 year anniversary, they launched a foundation in her honor.
That was really cool.
Yeah, so it's called the Tammy Douglas Daybell Foundation too, and they say it's to honor her legacy of service and love of literacy. And it was Tammy's siblings and her parents that started it. They have all of the social media set up, and if you go on our social media sites, we have put that out there so you could follow those pages. Really excited to see what comes of that because it's for children, and anytime you're helping kids, you can never go wrong. And I think it's just really selfless of them in the midst of number one, not knowing what happened to Tammy, although I'm sure they have an idea. And all this uncertainty and no answers to still be thinking about how they can help children in the face of their grief. And I just think that's really amazing.
Yeah. So, talking about Tammy, what are you thinking about autopsy results?
Well, I've been a little worried about charges lately. I know we always say they're coming, but you get that doubt that kind of creeps in. It was sent to the attorney general a while back, but I always go back to what Nate said on Nancy Grace months ago, which was he had been told even if the autopsy came back as inconclusive, there may be enough evidence in a digital sense to charge them. So I don't know what they're waiting on at this point. I think a lot of people are nervous that maybe there's just not enough to nail down charges, but conspiracy is different. You don't have to prove who killed the kids.
Yeah.
So I still think it's coming. I mean, we've got this pretrial on December 8th. So I sort of feel like if they're going to file conspiracy charges, it would have to be before this pretrial.
Yeah.
If they keep that date in stone. Now that if they, delay it, then and these hearings get delayed nonstop.
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
was one just recently. It had been 6 years.
yeah, I mean, if you follow trials and you're used to it, dates just are kind of there. They get delayed all the time, so I'm just not convinced any of these January and March dates that we just talked about are going to go through. It's just going to depend on so much.
Yeah. So you brought up an interesting thing about divorce.
Yeah, I mean, I was just sort of thinking, and we're going to talk about the joinder in a little bit because that's been the main hearing that happened last week. And I was just sort of wondering if the joinder had been granted or if they had agreed a joinder was about it. If the judge said, no, they don't have to have a joinder, would you have to, would you, would it be possible for them or for Chad to maybe try to divorce her? Sorry, guys, we had a little interruption, so we had to stop. So I'm going to restart my thought because we can't go back to re-record that part. So my thought is if the judge had said that they did not have to be joined, I'm just convinced if it hasn't happened, and I've said this before, they have to separate at some point, and they're going to have to turn against each other if they have a big chance at a defense individually.
But you think about it, like if they have to, if the joinder stands, how do you separate yourself when you're sitting there? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, I almost feel like is that setting it up for some kind of an appeal later? I don't know. I mean, the judge ruled that there wasn't enough evidence to separate.
And I totally agree.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, you have the same witnesses.
It's all the same.
Everything's the same.
But I just wonder at some point before we get to trial, would Chad file for divorce or an annulment in Hawaii? Annulments in Hawaii are really hard to get.
Yeah.
But if you notice at the joinder, Pryor referred to her as Lori Vallow with no flinching from Chad. Of course, he didn't flinch at all. I thought my TV was frozen again.
I'm going to tell you. That must sit there like a statue.
He was like, I don't even know if he blinked.
Yeah.
No nostril flaring that I normally look to make sure that my TV's not frozen.
Yeah.
But to me, that sort of speaks volumes because you've got Mark Means calling her Daybell. And you've got Chad's lawyer calling her Vallow. So I've seen it before where you've got two defendants and they divorce during the process of before they go to trial, or an annulment. It's really hard to get annulments in Hawaii, and there's like 6 different criteria, but one of them is getting married under duress or fraud. So that could come into part of a defense later if, let's say, Lori wants to claim she's brainwashed by Chad and says, "Hey, yeah, I married him, but I wasn't in my right mind because he's manipulative and he brought me into this crazy cult." I don't know. It
Yeah, I
was
don't.
just a thought I had.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the unexpected is normal in this case, but it was just a thought I had. I don't know. Maybe they won't. Maybe they're just as joined as they were. Nate Eaton said recently, as far as he knew, they were still on board with each other. I
yeah.
just think it's going to be every man for himself at some point.
You would think so.
But yeah, it's going to be crazy with them both sitting there, and if and it seems Pryor definitely has a different approach than Means, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
He's not tweeting.
No, oh my gosh, we're going to talk about that in a second too. Just after we talk about Melanie and Brandon,
Yeah.
there hasn't been much movement there. They've submitted their list of witnesses for the trial, and there were some motions for witnesses to appear on telephone. But other than that, I haven't heard anything about Melanie Pulowski or Brandon.
Nope.
It's been really quiet. She's had her baby, so I'm sure just those early weeks of motherhood are exhausting. And then you've got, the biggest trial, I think, of the decade in this country, in the background.
Yeah. So we were talking about Mark Means' tweet.
Oh boy.
And what he said was, as I prepare the defense for Lori Vallow Daybell, I'm learning that persons like Melanie Gibbs, he said it with an S, it's
Yeah,
just Gibb.
Mm-hmm.
You would think he would know that, but anyways. And her boyfriend David Warwick appear to have been eagerly involved in more than they let on. If you know something, say something. And then he put a video with rats like running from a sinking ship type thing.
I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, what the world?
Yeah, but the second tweet, because he did a little thread, was the defense lacks the resources of the prosecution, the state of Idaho, the Attorney General of Idaho, the FBI, Chandler Police, Madison County Sheriff's Department, Fremont County Sheriff's Department, and the Rexburg Police, etc. We need the persons of knowledge to come forward. I, I, I still don't know what to say about that.
I have, like, okay, the person you're defending knows everything.
Right.
Like, okay, tell the truth.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I know people have very split feelings on Melanie Gibb, and I think we've expressed our feelings in the past about her. But here's the thing: Melanie Gibb and David Warwick are not under investigation, as far as we know.
Nope.
And they're working with police. So I'm not sure how he thought that sort of in almost intimidating the star witness for this trial, as far as we know, what would that do for him?
Yeah, like I don't know if I've ever seen that. Like you followed one of the big cases.
No.
Okay, did you see any tweets or?
I've never seen a defense attorney call out a witness or sort of implicate them in something.
Yeah.
Ever. Like before a trial started. Now, after I've seen, people say things or defense attorneys, I think of like Kirk Nermy in the Jodi Arias case. He wrote a book.
Yeah, afterwards.
Way after, because
Yeah.
he did not want to risk any kind of an appeal.
Yeah.
I
don't.
or ineffective counsel. I mean, he was defense, but he didn't want to be seen as like somebody who couldn't handle it.
Yeah. So Melanie gives response from so Nate evidently talked to her, and she just said the truth will prevail.
Yeah, I mean, she is a free woman, and I think if law enforcement had any inclination that she was somehow involved or hid anything having to do with these murders, I don't think she would just be a free woman.
Yeah. And we don't know everything. We know just a small bit of what they know.
Exactly.
There's more stuff that they have told the police, obviously, but we don't know it all because we haven't went to trial yet.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And then I kind of thought, is it a situation where maybe that those tweets were sort of a scare tactic to get Melanie Gibbs' attention? Like, is he sort of warning her they're coming after her? Because I thought Pryor did the same thing at the preliminary,
Yeah.
where he's questioning Melanie Gibbs' relationship with Tylee.
Yeah.
And he's making it known Tylee didn't like Melanie Gibb, and maybe Melanie didn't like Tylee. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I felt like Pryor had already started this trend at the preliminary.
Okay, so one of the that you gave up talking to Melanie Gibb when you waived,
The
the
preliminary.
preliminary.
Exactly.
Like, why are you saying all this stuff when you could have talked to her? You could have questioned her on the stand.
Right. And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that it's Lori's call. I mean, if Lori doesn't want to go to the preliminary and it's not required by law, then Mark Means has to do what she wants. I mean, she employs him as far as we know. I mean, I think the money's got to be gone at this point. But so you're absolutely right, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have said, "Look, Lori, I mean, we're trying to keep you out of prison for decades, maybe the rest of your life. We need to do this preliminary. I need to see what she knows."
Yeah.
So why put it in a tweet?
Yeah.
Is he trying to sort of set off an ineffective counsel argument? Or, some people theorize maybe he's just trying to get booted from the case. I mean, I don't see how there's any money left. I don't think that her family would be bankrolling her defense at this point.
Yeah.
I know that later on down the road, I think that they can ask to be removed, or they can ask to be paid from a public fund, which is essentially like, they go from being private counsel to sort of a public defender.
Yeah.
But then is he trying to discredit Melanie Gibb and David Warwick as a witness
and taint the jury pool?
Right. Because they're going to vet the jurors, but nothing good came out of that tweet. I mean,
No.
it backfired on him.
Didn't he delete it?
No, it's still there.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, because I checked today to just make sure I had the quote right, the tweet right.
Gotcha.
And it's still there. I mean, he didn't do a dirty delete.
Yeah.
So,
because he did that before, right?
Yeah, I think maybe he has. I did it on a group once. I got jumped. I had no clue about a dirty delete. I just had a fact wrong or something, and I deleted it. And then
I remember that.
50 people jumped on me and were like, "What are you hiding?" I'm like, "Bad grammar."
Yeah, exactly.
So who knows? But there are a couple of pieces of law that sort of deal with this. There is Rule 3.6 is called trial publicity. And it says a lawyer who is participating or has participated in the investigation or litigation of a matter shall not make extrajudicial statement that the lawyer knows or reasonably should know will be, decimated by means of public communication and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing. Oh dear.
Yeah, you got it.
See, I can't even blame my eyeball on this.
Yeah, close your eye. Look at it.
It's blurry. Or prejudice. Can you say the word?
You said it. Just go.
Okay. And in other words, like proceeding in the matter. Now, Part B says, notwithstanding paragraph A, a lawyer may state a request for assistance in obtaining evidence and information necessary thereto. So it sort of goes both ways.
Yeah.
You could say he did a bad thing because he could be tainting potential jurors, or you could say he's trying to find evidence and information.
Okay, if he would have tweeted out, "Hey, I'm looking for people who know more stuff."
Yeah.
I think that's a little different than throwing
because
them under the bus.
But you're calling them rats.
Yeah.
And
it was actually a video.
It was a video of rats running.
Yeah.
So I just don't see where anything. I mean, I don't think that the prosecution said anything about that tweet. I didn't see any kind of a statement. Maybe I'm wrong, but who knows? I mean, maybe they're holding their cards and waiting to see. It wouldn't do any good for the prosecution at this point to throw Mark Means off. I don't think, because we're too far already in the process.
Okay, can I tell you my theory on the reason why they didn't wait? They wanted the joinder.
Why?
Like, this is just my theory. This is Fruit Loops theory. So he can ride on Pryor's coattails.
Yeah, they're in the same building.
Like, I really don't. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what to do. So I think really he can ride on his coattails.
I think you might be right. They share a building, so that
Yeah.
the joinder makes sense in that they can both pour over everything together. But Pryor is very active in filing stuff, and Mark Means hasn't filed anything since September 21st.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going on?
Well, he
But
filed a ton of stuff for discovery in April or something.
right, and that deadline just passed. It was October the 29th, and I mean, we've got a list here, and we're gonna go through it real quick. He's asked, okay, so back in April, Mark Means asked for all audio and video recordings, communications, emails, texts, social media posts, voicemails, videos, statements, pictures, police reports, agency reports, notes, charts, graphs, and files regarding the following people: Lori, Chad, Melanie Gibb, David Warwick, Alex Cox, Zulema, Charles Vallow, Adam Cox, Summer Shiflett, which is Lori's sister, Melanie Pulowski, Ian Pulowski, Kay and Larry Woodcock, Heather Daybell, other witnesses or potential witnesses,
That 15, just everybody.
JJ and Tylee. And they also asked for the toxicology and autopsy reports for Charles Vallow, Joe Ryan, Alex Cox, and Tammy Daybell. He's not entitled to that stuff.
Yeah, we've discussed it before, right? If prosecution doesn't bring up something, right, it's later on. He can get it at trial, right?
Well, I mean, right now they're not charged with anything other than the disposal of the kid and the destruction of the kid's remains. This has nothing to do with Charles's autopsy. This has nothing to do with Joe's autopsy. Nothing to do with Tammy Daybell right
Yeah.
now with the charges.
Yeah.
So, also requesting the names of all investigating authorities and the communication they made during the course of their investigation. 2 years worth of emails from Lori's computer, social media postings, dating and romantic website information, along with all financial records. Included in the request are records from Lori's telephone, laptop, and other items saying they belong to her. He also asked for documents, recordings, written evidence, photographs, videos, recordings, reports, text, emails, financials, and including Kay and Larry, Brandon Bourdreau, and others. And he's asking for the jailhouse recordings and letters for Chad and Lori, and autopsy and toxicology reports for JJ and Tylee. So last week, Rob Wood essentially was like, this is vague, really broad, it's burdensome. You're asking for the kitchen sink when right now we've got 2 felony counts.
Yeah. I'm telling you, Means don't know nothing.
Right. So last week, in response to Rob Wood saying, you're not getting all of it, I know that Rob Wood did give some discovery to him that is relevant to the charges. And so Mark Means last week sent an 8-page letter to Rob Wood as a follow-up to his response. So he said that Means said that Wood's responses were not sufficient. And Nate's website, East Idaho News, they got a copy of the letter that was from a source. And it said, after careful review, your responses lack compliance. This is our good faith attempt to resolve the issue prior to filing a motion to compel Means rights. Please provide full and complete responses no later than 5 p.m. as of Thursday, October 29th to our office. The only thing that really prosecution can't hold on to is any kind of evidence that proves her innocence.
Yeah.
Or that would prove that maybe she wasn't the mastermind or she was duped or whatever.
Yeah, we talked about it before when at Chad's preliminary, Wood was very careful what he brought to the table.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, Means is asking for everything but the kitchen sink.
Right. And the thing is this, we all know that it's at some point, all of this discovery will be relevant because we anticipate charges for all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's when you ask for the toxicology and the autopsy reports. There's no reason to have Tammy Daybell's autopsy when you're just now facing charges for destruction of evidence, which are their bodies.
Yeah.
So I think maybe Means knows the gravity of all these different potential charges. And so he's trying to get a leg up because in some way they kind of weave themselves into the kids' charges, but that's not how law works.
Yeah.
You don't just get everything they have because it might help your client. It's got to be relevant.
Yeah. And we know, like Wood said in there were texts between Lori and Chad with the same plan with the kids, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And then his statement about where he said that the two cases were essentially the same for both defendants.
Mm-hmm.
That state police will demonstrate that the concealment of Tylee and JJ's bodies are the result of the same plan and the same series of acts and transactions which constitute the offense for which both defendants are charged.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, all the I'll just sit here thinking all the information that means just ask for. It's like, okay, like your client is so guilty.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's just that there's so much more to come. Is he trying to get a leg up on defense for this? I don't know that he'll represent her in these other future charges that are for Charles or whatever.
Okay, I don't mean to interrupt you here.
No, go ahead.
But the show Bull on TV, I watch that. My mom loves it, so I watch it. So I'm thinking, I thought, like on there, the defense attorneys, they come up with, like, they research and find their own information. And I'm like, this dude's just sitting back saying, okay, I need all this.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right.
Like, research something.
Give it all. I mean, you can get a private investigator, and defense attorneys do that.
Yeah.
During the course of the kind of building the defense. So, I mean, if he wants to find out other stuff and it's not relevant at the moment, then maybe he should get a private investigator.
Yeah. I think Means might be a little lazy.
Well, and I think too, you don't know what Lori's telling him. I'm sure it's not the full truth. So he's got to fill in the gaps himself. And this is the most high profile client he will ever have in his career.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest high profile clients in the country right now, maybe even in the world.
Yeah.
So he's not a criminal defense attorney.
Mm-mm.
So is that sort of what we're seeing now? Is just that that incompetence of not knowing. I mean, because Pryor I don't like Pryor. You guys know that. Like it just, I just want to throat punch somebody when I hear him talk because he's so pretentious.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, Pryor is doing what he needs to do the best he can for Chad. He's active. He's filing the motions. He's making decent arguments. I mean, they're good enough. Yeah. And Means hasn't filed anything since September. We're in November.
Yep.
Nothing. We've heard nothing about anything with her.
Crickets.
Nothing at all.
And I bet you he's just doing video conferences with her.
Well, yeah, because he's so far away. It's
He's saving gas.
Is it a 4-hour drive?
I think that's what they said, like 4.5 hour drive.
I'd be curious to know, how often Pryor comes to where Chad is.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're not getting paid or whatever and you're 4 hours away, I mean, they waived those 2 appearances. So it doesn't seem like an aggressive defense at this moment.
Yep.
It seems very kind of just sit back and then just sling mud on Twitter. And that's not going to fare well for his defense of Lori.
Yeah, I was waiting on the judge to say something about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that there wasn't something filed, and I don't know how it goes. Maybe it fell under the B part of that law we just talked about.
Yep.
Where he's just genuinely seeking out more information. I just think he's barking up the wrong tree. I mean, if prosecution had given us any indication that Melanie Gibb and David Warwick were under any sort of suspicion, but they haven't.
Yeah.
And it just seems like you go after maybe it would make more sense to me if he said Melanie Pulowski as opposed to Melanie Gibb.
Yeah.
Melanie didn't live in the same city with her.
Yep.
And Melanie Pulowski lived right beside him.
Yep.
So who knows what's up with that? I'm still curious about charges for Melanie with Brandon's attempted shooting. I mean, I know she was a person of interest. It's just we need charges, y'all. My brain just short circuits now. I'm like, I don't know what to think.
You short circuit and you stab yourself in the eye.
I know.
Yeah.
I think I might have went in my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Been a little fuzzy lately.
Yeah.
So the Joinder.
Yep. So they're now co-defendants.
Mm-hmm.
So that being denied, that was big for prosecution.
It was huge, huge.
So what do you think?
I mean, individually, they'd do better. If they had said, yeah, you don't have to be joined, it would benefit the both of them because then they could establish pretty much their own separate defense that could be polar opposite from each other.
Yep.
So at this point now, you kind of got to get on the same page with your defense. And if Chad wants to claim that he knew nothing, even though the kids are on his property and all
And
that
he
stuff,
texts saying that
right? Yeah,
he shot the raccoon. Yeah.
But for Lori, and I've seen some talking heads say that she's in a better position right now in a defense, theory that they weren't on her property, obviously. And could she just claim, hey, they told me they were fine? Maybe, but I think it's bad for them.
Yeah.
To have the joinder because you're going to have the facts laid out there.
Well, too, you got to think about you're going to have the jury sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to see them sitting together.
Right.
So we talked before about the jury finding one guilty and one not. Doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, but that could also be the basis for an appeal.
True.
Because if you're talking about the same crime, the same facts, and one jury sees it one way and the other one sees it the other, then to me it seems like you could appeal that.
Yeah.
And then you risk, mistrial or whatever, and it becomes a cycle.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be separate. I think it's going to be joined.
I think so too. I don't think he's going to, because I think now Pryor will definitely file to for the separation.
Yep.
And but that's where we will start to see defense because he will have to put up facts as to why Chad's defense is radically different from Lori's. Because that's the only way you're going to get a judge to consider separating those cases.
Yeah. And we thought he may show a little bit of that at the hearing, but he didn't.
No, and he brought up some recent Supreme Court ruling that I don't think was very relevant to Chad and Lori.
Yeah, it was weird.
Mm-hmm.
It was Nava, and it was a guy who sexually assaulted 2 different girls on 2 different days. So I didn't see how that was relevant to any of that.
Yeah, because even though it was separate crimes, it's probably the same set of facts.
Yeah.
And then it's only one defendant and not 2.
Yep.
So he was asking for a separate trial for the charges, and Pryor is asking for a separate trial for 2 defendants. Yeah. Very different. And the judge, Pryor asked, he said he didn't have all of the discovery he needs right now, and he asked the judge to allow them to get all the discovery first, then come back and argue to sever the cases. And the judge was like, I'm confused because the process chronologically needs to have cases joindered first before they can argue to be severed. So he shot him down with that.
Yeah, that was funny. He was like, they're separate right now until the ruling.
Right, yeah. He was like, I can't rule, because I have to make this ruling first and I haven't made it.
Yeah.
So do you think how do you think it's going to go with defense strategies if this thing's joined?
I mean, they seem to have different strategies. I think he'll have to tell why if he files for severance. Mm-hmm. Could Lori be called as a witness in that?
I think so. I think this may be the one time that they get on the stand. I know, like in a murder trial, they're gonna not want to put them on the stand because that opens them up to cross-examination.
Yeah.
And the defense attorneys are just gonna not want to go there. But it could be a situation where one or both of them could have to get on the stand and tell why.
Yeah.
Maybe Chad gets up and says, hey, look, this is sort of my defense. This is, without telling you all of it. We will get more information, I think, if he files for the severance and it goes to a hearing. Yeah. We're going to have to hear part of his alibi or defense or whatever.
Yeah. Which we know, he doesn't. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have. So
it's not going to be easy to prove that it should be severed.
No.
He was very quick to allow the joinder. So
I'm still curious about the interactions with Chad and Lori.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, she wanted the joinder.
Yes.
So I don't know.
I mean, could that just still be a little bit of a tactic of saying, well, yeah, she was brainwashed and she does anything he asks, I don't know. I wouldn't want a joinder.
Yeah, I wonder if it would have been different if they both objected.
I
But like
I don't
she
know.
was okay with it,
Still, it's
and
the law. I
it's
mean, if
still the same thing,
yeah, if there's not a gaping hole in that, I mean, I just don't see that a judge is going to do it because, again, you go back to, you know, two separate judges, two separate juries, families got to travel for two trials, witnesses have to testify twice. You get into, they're going to pick apart testimony and find anything that's slightly different, and then it's going to be, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it makes no sense.
Yeah, and then like what we talked about, you're gonna have a hard time finding a jury for one trial.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
As big as this case is,
You're gonna have to
so
put the case on Mars if you don't want anybody to have no knowledge.
there's water there. No, I'm just kidding.
Didn't they say there was water
I
there?
think that little robot didn't it find water or something? I don't know.
I don't know.
So, anyways, so we're just wondering, when is the blame game gonna start?
I think I'm still, I don't care what anybody says. The way Pryor has approached the Vallow situation um, versus Lori Daybell, I think it's already happened. Whether or
Yeah,
not they admit to it, I think Pryor's told him, like, you got to throw her under the bus and run.
yeah,
You got to make this all about her.
yep.
And I don't know about means. I mean, I would say if he's smart, he's going to say, "Hey, we got to save you, so we got to put it all on him."
See, I think Chad will be the first one to throw her under the bus. That's my thought.
I
If it happens.
I don't know, dude. I just think that, like, if you look at her history, she's very quick to turn on anybody who's been a partner of hers when things go south.
Yeah, but this is different, I think.
I don't
For the
know.
first time it's different.
Maybe.
Yeah. So
But Ted Rowland, he really thought that the facts are different between the two. He thought that that the joinder, or at least Lori could say, "Hey, they told me everything was fine. They took the kids. They're good." But then again, I thought her actions before and after her kids were found just doesn't support ignorance
no.
or her trusting in Chad and Alex to say the kids are fine.
No.
And
Here's my thing. If you're claiming to be this whatever she claimed to be, the leader, gatherer,
she was the niece of Jesus.
exactly. Like if you're, trying to be this holier than thou person, why did you have to lie 593 billion times?
It's true.
Yeah.
But people cherry pick all the time and say, I can do this, but I'm going to stick to the scripture here, but I can deviate here, and they justify it.
Yeah.
I guess maybe her being an exalted being, she can bend the rules.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know.
So what did Julie Grant say?
She didn't think that they've really given statements that would point fingers yet, because she kind of felt like we would have heard about it by now.
Yeah.
And then one thing I forgot to say, Ashley Banfield on Court TV said that she thinks that Melanie Gibb will be a very credible witness to a jury.
Yeah.
She thought she would be convincing, and she made a mistake by lying to the police, but she recorded the call, came clean. They're going to portray Melanie Gibb as somebody who was just sort of in the cult and caught up in it. And the minute that she kind of got brought back to the reality, she cooperated.
Yeah.
And Ashley didn't think that it would be something that a jury would dismiss her testimony as unreliable. She thought she would be a witness that the jury listened to.
Yeah.
And probably is going to be one of the most important witnesses, I think, other than Zulema.
Yeah, we're still interested in seeing how that one plays out.
She hasn't said nothing.
No.
So it just leads me to believe. I mean, she was married to Alex. She was there when he was on the floor. She knows stuff.
Yeah, I just wonder if he talked a lot to her.
You never know. I mean, if she's part of this group, it seems to me that maybe some of them knew about the murders, some did not. And I don't know whether or not she knew. I can't say. I just say that I find it hard to believe she knows nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you listen to this 45-minute recording with Lori, and it talked about Joe Ryan. It came from Annie Cushing, which is Joe Ryan's sister and Tally's aunt, right?
Yeah. So somehow this recording, I don't know where it came from. It was put out there, and it was audio from October of 2018. So that was only months after Joe Ryan's death. Um, it was edited. You could tell listening to it. There was clips missing, like parts missing. There was a group of people there, and it was at Melanie Gibbs' house. So there was like a bigger group that I think Melanie had invited Lori to speak. So she just starts sharing this stuff and just, I mean, some notes I took, like just listening to. I listened to it like 3 times. She goes in talking about how the Bible, tells that it's okay. Like, what she say? She's talking about Joe killing Joe. That if he comes against you 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, you can kill him. Like it's in the Bible.
I didn't have that version of the Bible.
Yeah, the 10 Commandments say thou shalt not kill. So then she like says, talks about Joe going before the judges and he persuaded the judges to believe him. So then she had to let Tylee go with this monster. But she says, I didn't have a murderous heart. And I'm like, what the world?
Oh gosh.
So she just says, she never, like, she talks about things that Joe did. Like she says, he raped my kids and, all this stuff. And we talked about that before. That was never proven. But she's talking about this in this group with these group of people.
Yeah, and not only was it not proven, the stuff in the custody papers essentially called her out on coaching her kids.
Yes. Yeah.
And we've always said we don't doubt victims of abuse.
No.
But the professionals in this case did not find a reason to even like take Tylee away from Joe.
Yeah.
So just want to put that out there too.
Yeah. So she's saying all this stuff, she's telling these people, she's sharing her testimony, and all. And so she goes through and says that she wanted to kill him, like to make the pain stop. She wanted to kill him. So one thing I found interesting was she didn't mention the outcome. So at this point in this group meeting, he's already deceased. But she didn't mention that he was deceased.
Oh, wow.
So that was a little weird. I don't know, could that have been because it would make her look a little bit guilty that she had said those things?
Yeah. I've always said Joe was her first victim.
Yeah. So it's just weird. Like she says she goes to her bishop. So in the LDS religion, every 2 years you have to get a temple recommend. And so she says she goes to the bishop and she literally tells him, this is what she says, that she's either going to kill somebody or she's going to get a temple recommend. So I'm like, what? So from what we've seen, that's not how that works. You basically go in and they will ask you questions based on your own honesty and feelings. Like you answer the questions that they ask. So she was just very nonchalant. Like she said it and kind of laughed. So I really don't think that's how that played out.
Yeah.
But so it was just her voice. Like, I don't know. You can see how she can manipulate people.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at her past and look at like Charles Vallow, I don't necessarily blame Charles Vallow for standing by her when all of this was in court because you're going to believe your spouse. You're going to believe, if you came to me and said, this child that we know has been raped by this person, I mean, I hate to just assume that they're guilty, but I would have no reason to doubt you either.
Yeah.
And especially when you're talking about a husband and a wife.
Yeah.
And if the kids are sort of echoing, if they've been coached to say this happened, why would you doubt it?
Exactly.
So that would go with anybody in her circle that was told this very elaborate story to.
Yeah. And the other thing about the bishop deal, if that was, and we don't know who the bishop was that she went to and supposedly said, I'm either going to kill my ex-husband or give me a temple recommend. If this was Gay Bonilla, to me is kind of a little bit of a game changer with him. If it was him, we don't know if it's him, so it's not verified. But if you remember, he's the one who heard Lori telling Charles that she was going to kill him.
Yeah.
So,
But didn't he sort of downplay it to police though?
he did.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that. Like, why would he, if Charles is his friend and his allegiance is there,
Yeah.
why would he downplay it?
Yeah. But so if that was Gabe, that's the second time he's heard her say that.
Yeah.
That would be a little,
a little bit of a red flag.
Yeah. She makes some statements, and says, someone wise spoke to me and told me to go to the temple. This was before she, I guess, asked for the temple recommend or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, was that Chad?
That's a good theory.
Because we know they were talking on AVOW.
Mm-hmm.
That they were sending messages on AVOW. So I wonder if that's the one who, told her to go.
Yeah.
She makes some statements talking about she hates to fight. And I just think back of the divorce proceedings and the stuff prior to then, of her enjoying being in the courtroom and fighting and stuff like that. So just some crazy statements she made. She was talking about her kids, and she was talking about kids in general. So a lady in the meeting commented about her kid or something, being in jail or something, I think. And so Lori said, they're here to do their own missions and we shouldn't interfere with that. And I'm thinking, what?
Yeah.
Like, how do you go? This is October of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know what happened in 2019.
Right. Less than a year later, we can reasonably say you knew your kids were murdered.
Yeah. And she says, talking about leaving Tylee, having to take Tylee to Joseph Ryan's house, her sweet little baby girl taking her to this monster. And I'm thinking, what? And then she comments about some stuff like when JJ was little, he wouldn't sleep. And she just makes this whole thing up. It was just sickening, really.
Mm-hmm.
She made a comment about her confirmation on moving to Hawaii. And she said, I have to leave my baby and her babies. And I'm like, who are you talking about?
Yeah, who's her babies?
I have no clue on that one. I don't know if she misspoke. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But she did say Satan had been torturing her entire life. So it was strange. It was, Zulema was on there.
Yeah, you told me, and I briefly you could hear.
Yeah. She asked a question, and they recognized her and said, Zulema, whatever question she had, it was something I don't remember, but she was there in that meeting. So it was just, I don't know, it was weird. Mm-hmm. Like, you could feel Lori was in control. And I know Melanie invited her there, but it was almost, she was in control. She had the attention.
Yeah.
She enjoyed the attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there was a group of people there.
Well, yeah, she loves attention. Just look at the Miss Texas pageant.
Yeah.
That you pay $500 to be in for people to clap when you walk across the stage.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, she held court, and that's her thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was just a little bit odd.
Yeah.
And I did research a little bit. Some of the LDS people were commenting on this video, and some of them did say that some of the stuff she said was LDS doctrine, but then she would take it and tell lies after it. So it wasn't all true.
Right.
So like we said before, you can't base what she's saying.
No.
You can't compare it to the LDS church because we know how far off.
Yeah. And she's going to bend anything to fit her narrative. Yeah. And to her, it's probably fine. It's justified. It seems like she justifies a lot of stuff that she does that's just totally off the charts crazy. But that's what crazy people do. They will convince themselves it's okay. And you have to understand a lot of those people are just, they're like-minded people.
Yeah. And I will say, she keeps saying she's a mother of 5 kids. And it's almost everything she says. I've been through this in my life. I've been through these divorces. I'm raising an autistic kid. All these things to get people to to almost feel sorry for her.
Well, she's projecting this noble woman to where if everything that we've seen, she didn't treat Charles's sons like her children. I mean, you don't treat your children the way she treated those boys or her kids.
Yeah.
But that's what people like her do that are narcissistic. They're justified in the bad stuff they've had to do because, that's how they work.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So I summed it up for you.
Well, that's cool. I didn't get to listen. I've just been, dealing with stuff. So I have spent a few hours today catching up. It's been a few weeks since I really have taken a dive into anything having to do with this case.
Yeah.
And we're definitely going to be picking up more soon. We've got to get our YouTube fixed. It's just we're having some issues with it, and hopefully we'll have that back up and running soon. But we have a lot of stuff coming up, just hearing wise, if they stand, and then future charges.
Okay, I want to say this.
What you want to say?
So Janice,
oh my gosh,
she dressed up. I don't know if y'all saw that, but she dressed up like Lori for Halloween. It was on the front courthouse steps.
Oh man,
she looked identical.
It gave me the willies
Yeah.
because I saw somewhere Janice is a local in Rexburg, and she's very active in all of the groups on Facebook that I've seen, and she's a really cool lady, but I had no clue that she looked like her until she put her in a orange jumpsuit and had the beach curls in her hair.
It said she had a thing on that said model inmate. There were people commenting saying, like, they were sending like messages. Is she out?
Right. Is she just doing a photo shoot in front of the jail for Halloween? Is this like one of those inmate build up things where they say, let's have a photo shoot?
Yeah.
It's crazy. We posted that on all of our social media on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, you will scroll down a little bit and see what you probably initially will think is Lori Vallow outside the jail. It's not. It's Janice rocking that costume.
Oh, yeah. It was good.
Totally insane.
Yep.
So I think that's all we had, I'm sure. How long did we go today?
57 minutes.
That ain't bad. We've went longer before, but we just had a little bit to cover. We may try to do one by the end of the weekend, maybe a short one. We'll see what happens, if anything new comes up or whatever. But man, there's just a lot of crazy stuff going on every time we come on here.
Yep.
There's just something. And just think about what we don't have yet: the emails, the texts, the voicemails, whatever.
Oh yeah.
Man, we'll be podcasting this case till Jesus sounds the trumpets.
It'll be 24-hour podcast.
You're a 24-hour Lori Vallow
Then I can
source.
say, everybody, they'll say, oh, quit commenting how long you took our time up. It'll be like, we just took the whole day up discussing this case, and
yeah, there's so much more to come, guys, and I just hope that maybe all at once we see charges, or they just drop them. Like, blip, 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 blip. And then we got like this huge case.
Yeah.
That's just all separate, but all together in a way.
Yep.
We will see what happens. If anything new comes up, we'll tweet about it first, put it on Facebook, and then we'll hop on here.
Yep. So y'all have a good evening.